NDP leader Avi Lewis wants Canadians to believe he's some kind of compassionate, progressive intellectual, a thoughtful broadcaster even, a defender of ordinary people, a champion of the oppressed. But Canadians deserve to know exactly who just took over the federal New Democratic Party. Because beneath the polished CBC voice and the activist branding is something far more radical.
I want Naheed Nenshi to be the next premier of Alberta. We must get rid of Danielle Smith.
A Canada that stands up against genocide in Gaza.
We're still arguing about pipelines, and we're not getting started on getting off this resource curse roller coaster.
NDP leader Avi Lewis is not some scrappy outsider fighting the establishment. Avi Lewis is the establishment. He's not blue collar, he's not working class, he's not even anti-elite. He is the elite. Third generation NDP royalty, Upper Canada College, CBC celebrity circles, Vancouver academic privilege, married into activist celebrity wealth. And now this wealthy, privileged socialist wants to lecture working Canadians about sacrifice. That's why Rebel News created avilewis.com. Not to smear him, not to twist his words, not to invent scandals. We don't need to. We're simply documenting what Avi Lewis has already done, what he already believes, what he's already said, and what he plans to do to Canada if he's ever given power. In his own words, with citations on the record, because you just know the legacy media won't do it.
We're not moving away from oil and gas, despite the price shock that's coming from the oil shock that is already here and the tens of billions of dollars that those oil companies are going to make. Canadian energy companies can afford a haircut when they are forecast to make $100 billion in excess revenue this year alone. We got to be taxing that money.
They'll call him thoughtful. They'll call him a visionary. They'll call him compassionate. But they won't tell Canadians that Avi Lewis helped architect the LEAP Manifesto, one of the most economically destructive political documents ever published in Canada. A manifesto that openly called for shutting down Canada's oil and gas industry. A manifesto that attacked pipelines while Canadians were losing jobs by the hundreds and the thousands. A manifesto so extreme even parts of the NDP backed away from it. Avi Lewis, though, he never did. He doubled down.
That the climate champions in the Liberal cabinet and the Liberal caucus have been systematically fleeing the ship. But if I was a climate champ within the Liberal Party and within the Liberal government, I might be looking for work elsewhere too.
I want Naheed Nenshi to be the next premier of Alberta. We must get rid of Danielle Smith. And Naheed Nenshi has stood up for trans kids and stood up for workers against the unreasonable use of the notwithstanding clause. And I'm utterly devoted to Naheed's victory. Despite the fact that he's not a member of the federal party, we are still New Democrats. In spirit, in soul, and in fundamental values.
In the Second World War, the Minister of Everything, C.D. Howe, created 18 new crown corporations, and Canada played an unbelievable role in fighting fascism in Europe. We need a mission moment like that in Canada, and I think we can have one.
This is a man who smeared pipeline workers as predators, a man who calls Israel's war against Hamas a genocide, a man who mocked Jewish Canadians as cry bullies.
I was proud to be invited by Labour for Palestine and to speak at their side event yesterday, and I salute that work of Labour for Palestine.
A man who pushes open door, open border ideology while Canadian cities buckle under housing shortages, addiction crises, and collapsing infrastructure. And while ordinary Canadians worry about fentanyl deaths destroying their communities, Avi Lewis pushes the same activist drug ideology that has already devastated parts of Vancouver. This isn't fringe campus activism anymore. He's the leader of a federal political party. He wants to be the prime minister. And Canadians, well, they barely know anything about him. And that's not by accident. It's because the media class protects people like Avi Lewis. Avi Lewis comes from activist royalty. He married activist royalty. He lives inside elite institutions where radical politics are rewarded, subsidized, and celebrated. And he's rich enough to escape his bad ideas. Avi Lewis talks about class warfare while personally benefiting from every elite institution in the country.
We have been standing up for Canada's place in the world, fighting for an independent economy and a foreign policy that is independent from that of the United States.
He rails against capitalism while collecting a six-figure university salary. He condemns economic growth while enjoying the lifestyle that economic growth made possible. He attacks the energy industry while living comfortably off taxpayer-funded institutions and activist networks. Easy to preach degrowth from a Vancouver faculty lounge. Harder to explain it to a welder in Fort McMurray, though, or a farmer in Saskatchewan, or a truck driver in Alberta trying to keep food on the table after years of inflation and carbon taxes. Avi Lewis and the NDP, well, they scream about eating the rich.
I'm going to close this campaign the way I started. We're done being on the menu, and we're done with the ruling class eating us alive. It's time we take our seats at the table and eat the damn rich!
But somehow the rich never seem to include millionaire activists, celebrity academics, media elites, or political dynasties like his own. No. According to Avi Lewis, the villains are usually the people who actually build things. Oil workers, tradesmen, small business owners, farmers, the middle class and those struggling to get to it, as Trudeau used to say.
A good chunk of your platform, a platform you won on, involves nationalizing industries, banking, groceries, construction.
And we are so soaked in the market mindset that we expect the post office to make money.
If Avi Lewis gets his way and the oil patch collapses, Avi Lewis still gets paid. If energy workers lose their jobs, Avi Lewis, well, he still has tenure. If housing prices explode under open border policies, and they are, Avi Lewis still owns property in Vancouver. If hard drug policies destroy your community, Avi Lewis still lives far from the chaos ordinary Canadians are forced to endure. That's the real story here. Avi Lewis isn't leading a revolutionary war against power. He inherited power, and he loves it. And he wants even more of it. That's why this campaign matters. If Canadians are going to be asked to take Avi Lewis seriously as a national leader, then Canadians deserve to see the full picture. Every speech, every interview, every policy, every radical proposal, documented, archived, and searchable. That's what avilewis.com is for. And unlike the CBC, unlike government-funded legacy media, unlike the activist NGOs pushing the same ideology as Avi Lewis, Rebel News doesn't take a dime from the government, never have, never will, which is why this project only exists because ordinary Canadians choose to support our independent journalism. So if you want to help us keep documenting Avi Lewis and the radical agenda now sitting at the top of the NDP, visit avilewis.com. Read the receipts, share the clips, follow the citations, and help us expose the most radical federal political leader Canada has ever seen. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. To learn exactly who the leader of the federal NDP, Avi Lewis, truly is, please visit avilewis.com.